Hello, everyone. So, this article I was looking at earlier today, and I thought it was really interesting because it went a little further into who Nipsey Hussle was in terms of his activism. And so, when I was reading this article, I was really taken back by the plan that he had, and in which I'm actually curious as to who might be implementing this plan, if they're still actually going to go through with this, if there's someone else that has taken over the idea or has tried to work at seeing if they could actually create this plan and put it into effect. So I have several windows open. So I'm actually going to read this article. Um, Let me see here. I have several windows open, and there's a reason why. Because I was looking at another, um, well, it wasn't actually an article, it was about rent control. And so Nipsey Hussle, he had a plan to beat gentrification in South LA and across the US. And this is by an Angel Jennings. And so right here is pictured the Marathon store and mourners that were in front of the Marathon store, clothing store that is. It was the centerpiece of the rapper Hustle's plans to revitalize his neighborhood or community. And so it goes a little more deeper into that whole arena because it's not just about talking, it's about what you do, it's not what you say. And so he was a doer, and so he was working on a plan, and that's where the activism came in at, was trying to help the community, and he was going about it in a way of economics. So Nipsey Hussle's stretch of Los Angeles, or actually Slauson Avenue in Los Angeles, South LA, that is, has largely been overlooked by gentrification boom. So we've heard about that. There's a lot of gentrification that's going on. It's not just here in California; it's happening in a lot of places. Mainly, a lot of major metropolis cities, and the gentrification boom that has transformed so many neighborhoods in Los Angeles alone, but also in other places. But the lack of investment in Hyde Park section of South LA shows on the faces of distressed buildings, some still etched with the names of bygone businesses that haunt the neighborhood like a ghost. So, in the months before Hussle was being gunned down in front of his clothing store in late March, okay, so the rapper was working to bring economic development to the blighted blocks around Slauson and Crenshaw Boulevard, but on his own terms. So he wanted more for his community, but he wanted to change or to make changes to be driven from within. And so it goes into the details of what it was that he was trying to do. And I found this to be very interesting. So it goes into it to say that at the time of his death, Hussle was reaching out to a diverse array of partners, um, from fellow musicians and LA politicians to Republican senator from South Carolina, to make the revitalization of Hyde Park something larger and potentially longer lasting. So Hussle was part of an investment group that was planning to use a tax incentive carved out in a recent federal law to revive not only his neighborhood but other forgotten low-income communities in 11 cities. So that's why I said it's not just happening in Los Angeles, it's happening in cities like major cities like Washington D.C., and also he even wanted to branch out to Puerto Rico because we know what happened. Some of us know what happened to Puerto Rico. So celebrities and South Los Angeles residents alike have lauded his efforts to leverage the tools of other institutions that long ago or abandoned his community or were long ago abandoned in his community. And so Jay-Z praised Hustle's work in a show last month in New York's newly renovated Webster Hall. So gentrify your own hood, because that's what his slogan was. But before these people do it, he rapped, claim eminent domain and have your people moving. So that's a small glimpse into Nipsey's what Nipsey was doing. And so together with his business partner, real estate developer David Gross, Hussle had made, or he had been scheduled, he had made a meeting to meet with the Senator Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, to discuss rolling out an investment fund that they had created called Our Opportunity. So its mission is to work with the hometown heroes of every large majority Black city to, in a systematic way, to acquire development transfer formative projects, said Ross, who grew up in South Los Angeles, and Hustle, an activist who has been hailed for never abandoning his hood even after earning a Grammy nomination, had also derived a way to have residents invest alongside him. So the plan was to crowdfund from each community and give residents an ownership stake in every project created in the neighborhood, or at least their neighborhood, that is. So he wanted to be a symbol and really spark a movement, Ross said of Hustle. So he was born Aramis Ashtadam. So correct me if I'm wrong if I didn't pronounce it right. I tried to do the best I could. So basically, it was an economic version of Black Lives Matter. So that is what we were trying to create. So the tax incentive that Gross and Hustle were planning to tap was promoted by Scott and included in the President Trump's 2017 overhaul of the federal tax code. So it offers potentially large tax breaks to investors who are willing to pour much needed capital into rebuilding poor and sometimes up and coming communities that have that have been designated as opportunity zones. So there's a map here and it shows what would be called opportunity zones. So investors can take proceeds that would normally be subjected to hefty capital gains taxes, such as those from sale of business stocks or investment property, and put them into an opportunity zone investment fund to defer and potentially reduce those taxes. So to see the full tax benefit, the fund must be invested for a decade. Okay, so when Trump signed the executive order in December to establish the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, he said that opportunity zones would deliver jobs, investment, and growth to the communities that needed the most. So, federal and local officials say that they hope that this kind of long term injection of private sector capital will uplift poor communities that have not been recovered from the Great Recession since the last late 2000s. So, the tax incentive was already grabbed the attentions of people from like Wall Street, and the wealthy families had their eye on it. So far, more than 100 opportunity zone funds have been set up nationwide. So the goal of raising 24 billion, that would be funneled into housing projects and businesses according to the National Council of State Housing Agencies. But since 800, or not 800 rather, but 8,700 opportunity zones were identified by governors and designated by the federal government last year, there has been much debate over whether certain communities on the list truly qualify as equally disadvantaged or economically disadvantaged. So, some neighborhoods in Oakland and Queens and New York, both of which have seen a flood of capital and development in recent years, landed on the list, as did Hollywood as well. So, like I said, there's other places that are experiencing high rent and gentrification. And I just saw an article that popped up saying that in New York that they're looking to do rent increases and rent hikes. And so, like, as if they need that there, because I heard from what I've heard that New York is pretty expensive living. And so He goes on to say that there's some concern that the infusion of cash and the type of projects such investment could bring might spur gentrification and displacement of neighborhoods that are legitimately struggling, which is happening now. So the very thing that Hussle was trying to fend off in the community of South Los Angeles, South LA critics fear developers will prize profits over the people. So last year, more than 30 community groups sent a letter to then Governor Jerry Brown urging him to slow down the process of selecting federal census tracts to be designated opportunity zones. So there are no guardrails around this kind of investment that can qualify for this preferential tax treatment. So Kevin Stein, Deputy Director of California Reinvestment Coalition, a housing advocacy group, a main concern of ours is that this kind of unrestrained investment in certain neighborhoods that are already feeling gentrification pressures, it will just be a fuel on that fire and could result in large scale displacement of low income people and people of color. So John Lettieri, President and CEO of the Economic Innovation Group, part of a coalition that successfully lobbied Congress to create opportunity zones as part of the tax overhaul, acknowledged those concerns. So that's why he said it's important that local governments and community groups draft strategies to protect residents. So Lettieri had worked with Gross in a coalition, and it was Gross who shared the plans that he and Hussle had for South Los Angeles. So the other communities across the country as well. So we were excited about what they were pulling together. So Lettieri said this. So I think that we can see that this is happening on a national scale thanks to opportunity zones. But Hustle's business acumen was born. Acumen was born on the streets of South Los Angeles. So at 11, he polished shoes for about $2.50 at Chambers on Slauson, and took that was to pay for school clothes. And he said in interviews, he said this. So in goals, his goals and ambition, even then when he was young, he would shine shoes, and then he thought he would shine 100 shoes a day to make even more money. So that entrepreneurial spirit, he earned his nickname Hustle. So Hustle said that in the interview that he used to run errands for local hustlers, and some of them were members of the notorious Rolling 60s, so a street gang that he would go on to embrace in his music while also encouraging peace at the same time. So after a trip to his father's homeland in Eritrea, Eritrea, so hopefully I said that right. If I didn't, sorry about that. But he shifted his energy when he went to that trip away from the streets and into his music. Then he formed a record label called All Money In. So Hustle treated his mixtapes like collector items, and his music was free to stream online. But he priced physical copies of his 2013 Crenshaw mixtape at $100. So music mogul Jay-Z bought 100 copies, and then that went and shifted, and he marked it up to like his 2015 follow-up, so Mailbox Money, to 1,000 each. And then he sold about 60 in the first week. Wow, that's not bad at all. So Hustle sold some of his early work out of his trunk of his car in the parking lot of 3416 West, I almost said Crenshaw, but West Lawson Avenue. So he and Gross would later go on to pay 2.5 million to purchase the building on the lot, and then the same building where Hustle had opened his store. So the Marathon Clothing is what it is named right as we speak now. Still there, still operating, and the same lot where he was also um, murdered, and his death on March 31st over what police say is a personal grudge. So, meanwhile, the neighborhood around 33-year-old Hustle was slowly changing because of gentrification. So, anticipation of a $2 billion Crenshaw Metro rail line, which they're still working on. I pass by it quite a bit every day, and I'll be honest. They have not fixed that whole thing just yet, but they are working on it, and it's coming together. But the steps from his it's just steps from his shop. So his driven up home prices nearby and pushed out it drove up home prices nearby and pushed out some longtime residents and black owned small businesses eventually closed up because of this project. So, in the last years of his life, Hussle worked to cement African Americans' place by partnering with the city officials and community members to create the Destination Crenshaw Art Project. So then he got to work bringing his community the sort of amenities they want and which are common north of the 10 freeway, boutiques, grocery stores, and safe places to play. And so 3 years ago, Hustle set out to start an inner city investment fund with his business partner Gross, whom he met at the Lakers game several years ago and bonded with over tequila. And so one of the first projects was Vector 90, a co-working space and STEM center. It's in the industrial stretch of South Los Angeles that people said was too rough for the kind of that kind of investment. But Ross said it has been successful despite that what critics say, but the duo expanded their plan after Hustle's Hyde Park neighborhood was designated as an opportunity zone. So Ross and Hustle spent the last months of the rapper's life meeting with lawmakers and investors to discuss their fund called this R Opportunity Project. So I was excited when I learned of his investment in opportunity zones. Senator Scott said, he's from South Carolina, said in a written statement. And I am saddened that we will never get to discuss our plans and the vision for what this initiative could do to partner with and strengthen Nipsey's already amazing efforts. So Hustle and Gross wanted to build an L-shaped strip mall home of the Marathon clothing, which they bought in January. This was back in January, and they were going to add 80 units of apartments and condos on top of the shops with healthy food options, like with a larger investment fund. The duo wanted to make their neighbors their business partners, and they were going to set aside 20% of the housing units for residents of the neighborhood and invest with them so that they could own their own homes, Ross said. So Ross said that he and other investors had planned to unveil our opportunity fund later this month. Okay, so California Deputy Treasurer Javon Agee said Hustle provided a blueprint to building wealth that can serve as an inspiration to everyday man who might be working the graveyard shift and selling t-shirts on the side. So he really had to scratch and scrape to get into a position to acknowledgement. He said, but what he did is a blueprint approach to the economic development and self-wealth building that others can replicate. And so this I thought was a pretty well a well-explanatory article that pointed out what Nipsey Hussle's true intentions were, and it looked like it was all about economics and trying to wealth build, which is very much needed in the African American community. That's the problem that we have now, but a lot of opportunities are not afforded to a lot of people. But this would have been one plan that I believe would have probably taken off and it would have been strengthened. That's if you have people who are willing to invest in this and willing to make it happen. And so that is the question. So there's more to the Marathon clothing store than what people thought it was in the beginning. So by seeing this actually expands the whole idea of what this guy was trying to do. Nipsey. So he really did have a plan, and it's just unfortunate what happened to him. Do you think this could still happen if someone took it over? It's more than just buying clothes and buying music, but it's about saving your neighborhoods and your communities and actually putting money into the community and investing and making yourself become partner or owner of what you have, owning your community. That way, you know that you're not displaced. What are your thoughts on this? Because this is really important because I know some people will think, oh, why would you do an article about this gangbanger? Why would you do an article about this man? Blah, blah, blah. Let's set aside all of the negativity and think about the positivity of what this guy was trying to create in terms of the economic portion of it. And so that's what I'm saying in that sense. So I'm sure that there are other people that could have done the same thing, but you notice you don't really see very many people that will try to do these type of things and become active in their communities that they grew up in, or try to venture out and do something that no one else has done or have created, because this actually is happening in not only Los Angeles, South Central, but it's happening in New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta. There's so many places where gentrification is just cropping up everywhere. And when it comes to these communities, you need more people that are active in other ways where it actually helps not only themselves, but it helps a multitude of people. So, what are your thoughts and feedback on this? Because this is really serious, because this is something that is happening as we speak. So, I was looking at another additional article. Well, actually, it wasn't an article, it was something about rent control. And so, there are different laws. I'm just going to put it up on the screen if I can. And it says LA rent control made simple. So, it has like certain rules, certain laws. And I guess I'm looking at the bottom. I'm going to try to see if there's something like maybe a link at the bottom. But basically, I think anybody can look it up because what's the title of it? I'm going to put it up here. LA Rent Control Made Simple. And so I'm going to put it on the screen. That's if I have it. Let me put it on the screen. Yeah, it's Rent Control Made Simple. It's a lot of reading, a lot of, having to look at it, look at the jargon and everything. And then, sorry if you can't see all of it, but I just wanted to put it up on the screen so you can actually look it up yourself from the title alone. LA Rent Control Made Simple. This is for those people who live in cities like Los Angeles, South Central LA. So it says more tenants come under Los Angeles rent stabilization, which is LARSO, than in any other city in California. Many rent control laws are similar, and you can get the details on each law from the legal research page of this site. And so this is people that live in units that are apartments. This is not about owning anything, but meantime, while you are living in an apartment, and if you find that your rent is increasing, there are laws. And so, are you protected from rent increases? It has it here. Are you under rent control? And what is rent control? So, it has a breakdown of everything. And so, there are laws that you can look up to see if you're protected under what is called for protection of rent increases, which I think people are most concerned about, which has happened relatively recently to a lot of people that live in Los Angeles County, is called the Costa-Hawkins Act, which was created statewide, and it is a vacancy day control. Okay, so in two respects, if the prior tenant leaves voluntarily or served is evicted, the landlord can raise the rent for the new tenant to whatever they can get. And so the new tenant is no longer under rent control. So it changes when a new tenant comes in. So you can understand why some people, like if you have lived somewhere for many, many years and your rent has been really, really low, and all of a sudden they start changing things around, or they start treating you where they don't fix your appliances, where they neglect to come and if they have to do any pest control, if they you request for them to do maintenance and they act as though that they're slow on their feet, they're discouraging you or encouraging you to move out, or making you feel as though you need to move out. What they do is when they have a new tenant come in, then they can raise the rent. They can raise it up to market level rent. And so Here, for those under rent restrictions, the legal maximum increase has been 3% for the past several years. For rental housing built 1995, if it was built after 1995, that construction is generally exempt from rent controls. But if it was built before 1995, there is a law in place. So this has encouraged landlords to make up ridiculous and false reasons for eviction of rent controlled tenants just in order to raise the rents. So a lot of stuff will happen. You can read about it in here. I'm not going to go through all of this plain reading, but the title of this is called LA Rent Control Made Simple, and you can look it up. And so it's interesting because you'll find out just why your landlord won't fix your appliances, or your landlord, is neglectful on pest control, or he's trying to discourage you or make you feel like, oh, you're tired of your communication dialogue is not like what it was when you moved in. It's more, like where you can't get them to come and do anything. And so if things are old, you've been there for a long time, it's about trying to get you to move out, basically. It's like, okay, we won't do nothing. You don't say anything, we won't do nothing. Then you get tired of it and then you move out, and then that next person that comes in, they can jack the rent up. And so that's one reason why they do that. But with that being said, I'm going to let this video go. But that makes a lot of sense. When you think about it, we do need people that try to start owning instead of just renting. But it's hard because a lot of times people don't have the down payment, or they have the down payment, but they don't have a good credit score. Or maybe it's not the credit score. Maybe it's the they'll have like certain, lenders that'll come in and they'll try to get you in these homes, and the interest rate is really high. And so you don't know about that until later, until the interest rate increases really high on these loans that you get. And be careful of these lenders. Also be careful of, when you're looking for like owning a home, be careful of the people that come out to show the homes, the realtors, because they want a commission, and so they want to get their cut as well. So there's a lot involved in it, a lot of reading. You gotta do your homework on all of this, even as a renter. And that's anywhere, you got to do your homework on why these landlords will do what they do, because they're making money off of you, your hard-earned money that pays the rent. That money goes into their pocket, so they should have the money to refurbish your appliances and to fix things and do the maintenance. But that's how the game is played. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for listening.